Comfort dogs are not new. Comfort dogs have been around since World War II. In World War II, the hospitals where the soldiers would go started using comfort dogs. I think Smokey, a Yorkshire Terrier, was the first comfort dog ever used, and that was helping soldiers. And I have to believe that if comfort dogs can help soldiers heal and recover from the horrors of war, that certainly they're going to help children and families in our dependency courts.
A therapy dog serves many, a service dog serves one. And the service dog is taught skills particular to the person with the disability. It's a therapy dog's function to help people feel better, and these situations in dependency court can really be pretty electric, pretty highly charged, and the dogs have a calming effect on both the parents and their kids.
Comfort dogs aren't just about being warm and fuzzy in the courtroom. Comfort dogs can actually have some tangible benefits to the children and to the families, but really to the judge, him or herself. Because the less anxious people are in the courtroom, the better information the judge is going to get to make the really hard decisions they have to make about safety, permanency, and well-being.
We have so many children that are in distress, but I also do family law and am often interviewing children for custody. And they are often also in a lot of distress, shaking, tearful. And I had an experience where I had a volunteer from Canines for Partners for Life bring in the puppy that she was training. And the puppy sat down next to the little girl in the chair. And as soon as her tears started, the dog inched closer. And it was just it was a pleasure to see.
We started a comfort dog or therapy dog program about 6 years ago in Bucks County, and ours is a complete volunteer program. We reached out to an organization called Roxy Reading, which was known in the community for going into the schools and reading with the children in school. I contacted them and gave them my idea about bringing them into children and youth to help with the dependency children, and they were very enthusiastic, and after a few meetings, they agreed. And we have a complete volunteer program. We have over 30 owners of dogs that are therapy certified that come in over the course of the year, every dependency term. We have maybe 4 volunteers that split the half-day or three-quarter-day program that come in and interact with the children and the parents, either outside the courtroom, inside the courtroom, or some combination thereof. But it's completely volunteer, no cost to the county, no cost to the courts, no cost to anyone, and they're fantastic volunteers.
We have a therapy dog program that's called Pause for a Cause, and they're organized through a national organization, Therapy Dogs Incorporated, who provided to them insurance and the protocol for getting the dogs registered and trained as therapy dogs.
Anything that you can do to help ease the anxiety and the trauma that the mere experience of walking into a courtroom could have on a child or on a parent is something that we should be doing. Research has shown a number of health benefits related to comfort dogs and what they can do for people who are connected with them, and lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, lowering anxiety levels, increasing dopamine, which is connected to motivation, and decreasing depression. There are a number of things that comfort dogs can do. We know this. Comfort dogs are really wonderful tools for dependency court, primarily because dependency court is one of those courts where you have a number of children, a number of parents coming in at the worst time, probably, in their life. The stress, the anxiety of going into court is very high. The decisions that are being made in dependency court are literally life and death decisions. And so judges in dependency court have to make really difficult decisions. They make those decisions based on the information that's provided to them pretty much in court. If you can reduce the anxiety level of the people in that courtroom, the likelihood is you're going to get better, more thorough, information and evidence that you need as a judge to make the kinds of decisions that you're making.
I see the therapy dogs or comfort dogs as a key component to dealing sensitively with the children especially. They come into court, they traditionally came into court anxious, fearful, some of them withdrawn and not even capable of making eye contact. And our experience has been that with the contact with the therapy dogs prior to court, sometimes during the hearing as well, when we have heard from the kids, sometimes when we get into sensitive areas that we need to talk about and probably isn't a good idea for them to be in the courtroom, we ask them not to leave the courtroom, but we ask them if they would like to go spend some more time with the dogs. But we see that as doing away with withdrawn, anxious, fearful into kids that are much more comfortable in the courtroom, much more communicative, and it's been a real benefit dealing with reducing the trauma and the stress and helping out the kids to feel comfortable in the courtroom.
Dependency proceedings are generally more informal proceedings, and they're done that way, again, to get the evidence and the information out in the courtroom that the judge needs to be able to make decisions about the safety and well-being and permanence of children. Because they generally are more informal proceedings, it's a perfect place to bring dogs into.
The children, as everyone knows, are under tremendous nervousness. They're scared, they're frightened for a variety of reasons. Just coming to court makes them very scared. The parents, many times there's chaos in the hallways. You know, the parents are interacting with the social worker and there's voices that are raised, they're scaring people. The kids are sitting there listening to this, wondering what's going on. So on one hand, in the hallway, the dogs are a distraction from the chaos that's going on as the parents are interacting and talking to the social workers and trying to work out agreements, a variety of things. Another way, it reduces that stress. I mean, who doesn't like petting a dog? I mean, some people that are even afraid of dogs, if they're in the right environment, once they start getting more comfortable and start petting the dog, they all seem to like it. Have you ever seen anybody pet a dog and grimace? I mean, everybody smiles when they pet a dog. It releases that stress, it releases that tension, and it does the same thing in the court system. It releases that fear, that anxiety. And so that's a real buffer. I've used them when I privately talk to the kids. Bring the dog back into the conference room and we'll sit there. And they come in scared with their guardian, but the dog's there and they start petting the dog. And it has this way of just giving some comfort, and they start talking more friendly and more easily because they realize they're not being confronted. It's an environment where we're trying to just talk and see who they are and what's going on. So it's a real stress reliever for them, really, really effective.
Well, children are required to come to court, and they don't necessarily look forward to that. Sometimes it's extremely traumatic to them, the thought of even being here. So to the extent we have therapy dogs available that can reduce that stress and trauma, then they will be more likely to not have that same level of anxiety the next time they know they need to go to court.
I see that they calm down when they're petting the dog or seeing the dog perform some of her tricks. When they go into the courtroom, which we are allowed to go into the courtroom with the dogs, it takes their mind off the problems that they're dealing with because they're frightened when they go behind those doors. They don't know what to expect.
The impact on kids, it's just a complete transformation of the way they act in the courtroom. We had children that we had been dealing with for a while that really never opened up in the courtroom. And after the therapy dogs, the transformation was remarkable. Kids that hung their head in the courtroom and you really had a hard time getting them to participate whatsoever, came into the courtroom and greeted me, "How are you today, Judge?" and things like that. So giving them that 15, 20 minutes with the dogs is just something that you can't get any other way.
But there is one that I can remember. It was an older boy. He was 14 years old, hadn't left his bedroom for a year. It was after a death of a parent. We had to bring him in, and he had his head down and he didn't want to talk. And he was he was just very isolated and didn't want to be bothered. And he wasn't even interacting with the dogs, but put the dog in. And we went in the back and we talked, and the dog just came in and sat down, and he slowly went from his head down and very shy, like looking at the dog, and then the hand dropped to pet the dog, and I knew we were making progress. And ultimately, well, he didn't say a lot that day. He may have only said 10 words. It was 10 more words that I got out of him that I never would have got out of him, but for the fact that he felt comfortable. The next time back, he wanted the dog. He asked, "Can I have a dog?" Sure, no problem. So you know it has an impact. I just know these are the best dogs I've ever met. They're very well trained. They're very compliant. They let the kids pull their tail, pet their heads, pet every part of their body, snuggle up with them if they want to. Sometimes the kids just give them big hugs, and they are just so well trained and so compliant and so nice and docile.
Well, it wasn't a child, but it was a woman that was there. And I don't know what her circumstances were, but it was obvious she was quite upset, and she kept reaching out to the dogs and petting them. And I had walked away momentarily to go see people down the hallway, and I was called back because she had become very upset and was crying. So I brought Eric back, and she just sat there and just cuddled with him, and he just stood there. I swear he knew she needed him.
I had a young boy who was going into the courtroom, and he asked if the dog could go along in. And his mother was giving up her rights to the young man, and he was very upset. And with the dog sitting beside him, he was constantly petting Ginger, and I think that helped him calm down. I don't know if he accepted what was happening, but I felt that Ginger was helping him.
There has been a little bit of controversy about having dogs in courtrooms, and some of it has to do with people who just don't think dogs belong in court. Valid point. They are becoming more and more prevalent, and I think that as people who are doubters witness what the dogs can do, they probably become a little bit more willing to let the dogs in the courtroom.
Judges have the impression when I came up with this that, what do you mean you're bringing dogs into the courthouse? They have no place there. This is a dignified, we have integrity. Nobody would want the dogs in the courtroom. So I first said, great, we won't have dogs in the courtroom. Just let me put them in the hallway. Let them put them where the people are waiting for their case to be called. Because as we all know, dependency cases are private. And I knew instinctively that once I got over that hurdle, the next hurdle would be easy, because they would just automatically and seamlessly, somebody would ask the judge, can they come into the courtroom? And the judge would say yes or no. Now, we're talking about a civil case. Criminal cases would be totally different, but in dependency cases, so they just slowly made the transition from accepting the dogs, realizing they are a benefit to the system, that they make things easier for the litigants, the kids, the judge. And then on those stressful situations where the child is really apprehensive, it makes it much easier. And again, most of the time the dog has come into the courtroom with the very young ones that are just afraid to come in the court. They're fine with mom and dad, but they're just afraid because they're seeing a judge in a courtroom, which I understand, and they're 5 years old, and they bring the dog in and we talk about the dog more than anything else.
I would say, as it is in Venango, it's much more important to engage the families, to make the children and the families feel at home, than it is to worry about typical courtroom decorum. It's not to the point of where we encourage people to show disrespect for the court, but from my perspective, the court's perspective, it's much more important to make the family feel at ease and at home while they are in the courtroom than to deal with, you can't be bringing that formula in that bottle into the courtroom. There's no liquids allowed in the courtroom. That's so counterproductive when you're dealing in dependency court. So those are the kind of barriers I think people say, well, how would you allow dogs in the courtroom environs or whatever? Well, why wouldn't you? Because the goal isn't to do everything the way it used to be done in the 1800s, and the judge is supposed to do this and the participants are supposed to do that. If that's the way we wanted to run the court, then we would have an adversarial system. And if there's one thing I know, and that is that the adversarial system is not best suited to good outcomes in dependency court.
while a third actively are looking at it or have comfort dog programs. What's really exciting about the comfort dog program is that there really isn't any set formula for how to do it. Counties do it in various ways across the Commonwealth. Some pay for the comfort dogs. Most have partnerships that, like I said, cost nothing. Some use them strictly in custody court. Some use them in dependency and custody court. Some in criminal court. It really is up to the county. So that's an exciting piece about comfort dogs. You really can make your program or how you use them fit the needs of your local jurisdiction. There is no national, you have to do it this way. And that's exciting because it allows for creativity at the local county level. So I think in talking with the counties who actually have programs up and running, successful programs, when I asked them, what did they do that helped make it successful? I think the first thing they did is they didn't reinvent the wheel. They went on the internet, they talked to other counties who had comfort dogs, and they sort of took what they did and then adjusted it to meet the needs of their own county. I think the second thing that they talk about was they found a champion in their county. So the judge doesn't have to do this on their own. Judges are busy. Judges are doing not only their caseload, but a number of things outside of the courtroom. In some counties, it's the judge who led the creation of the program. But in many counties, what they did is they found their local champion. It doesn't take much of throwing a stick to find out there's somebody in your courtroom who loves dogs and would be thrilled to head up something like this. So, if this is something that interests a county, find your champion, give them the parameters, let them go see what they can do. You'll be amazed at what somebody who loves dogs and loves children can do.
I just love being around children. I love being around older people and seeing the enjoyment they get and the pleasure they get from seeing a therapy dog.
We found out about the court system, and being a retired police sergeant, I know how stressful the court system can be, and I was sold. I wanted to do it because I know how much it can help people with the therapy dogs.
This is Zelda. She belongs to Canine Partners for Life, who's based in Cochranville in southern Chester County, and I am fostering her. My daughter and I are fostering Zelda as a community service project. We got her when she was 8 weeks old, when she fit on my lap a lot better, and she is now 5 months old, and we've been working with her for the last 3 months. We work on socializing her and basic training.
Basic training is absolutely essential. Socialization so that the dogs are comfortable around a lot of different kinds of people and in different environments. That's all really critical in working towards that goal.
In order to become a foster home with Canine Partners for Life, they have a very intense process. We had to be interviewed. We had to have letters of reference. They wanted pictures of us. We had to go through puppy classes, which was a lot of fun.
Well, in Bucks County, we would send them to an organization called Roxy Readers, which is the provider who volunteered and continues to volunteer 6 years now and is very involved in the courts. In addition to just the dogs, and again, it's at no expense to the court or the county at all. We don't pay for training, we don't pay for insurance, we don't pay for anything. They just have to show us proof of insurance and be certified by Roxy Reading and to participate and get on the Roxy Reading schedule that coincides with our schedule, and they're in. So as long as they complete the Roxy Reading training, we accept them as a therapy dog, and we've had great success.
Roxy Reading Therapy Dogs, we have a very high standard for our volunteers. So all of our volunteers must first off have their dogs certified from particular certifying agencies that we advise them who to go through. One is more locally based, one is more internationally based, but they are where we get our insurance coverage. And that's vital for any program that's going to be run.
So I think that there are a lot of options out there. In Washington State, there is an organization called Courthouse Dogs. So there is national movement going on with the dogs. So I think that there's probably a lot of information out there for anybody who's interested in volunteering.
You don't have to jump full-fledged into comfort dogs. Try it, Try it in the little place where you think it might work in your courtroom. Begin it somehow. Just do it. You know, see how it works. You're going to be amazed at how it works, and there'll be bumps along the road, and then you just work out the bumps. I mean, that's what you do when you implement any new program. But see what these dogs can do in your courtroom. Sit back and be amazed at what you're going to see.